There you go. Yeah. There you go.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Tiggs, and I'm the event coordinator here at McNally Robertson Booksellers. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is located here in Treaty 1 territory. That is, of course, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Denver peoples, the homeland of the Métis Nation. In addition, McNally Robertson Booksellers itself rests on the land once occupied of the Métis community of Ministik. We are delighted to have you all out here tonight for the very first event of the fall. And I can think of few better people to initiate our fall season with than our David. We are gathered here tonight, of course, to celebrate the penultimate book in David's Misewa Saga, that is The Sleeping Giant, published by Tundra Books. Though his fans and readers may be disappointed to know that there will only be 6 books in the series, as booksellers, we are delighted because we can't fit any more than one more book onto the signing table. So any more will have to listen. I will not take up too much of your time this evening because we will get to the exciting part of the event. I just have a few quick housekeeping notes before we get started. The first is that there will be an introduction of David by which will take place in just a moment, after which David will grace us with a reading from The Sleeping Giant. Following that, there will be a conversation and then an opportunity for folks to ask questions. So if you are here and have a question, please just raise your hand. I will run over to you with this microphone in a non-threatening fashion. Not because we don't trust you to be able to project your voice, but just so those watching it. I'll be back at the end of the event to go over some exciting signs. But for now, I have the great pleasure of introducing tonight's host, who will then introduce audience. April Waters is a Red River Métis educator from Treaty 1 territory in Winnipeg. She is currently an administrator of Indigenous education with almost 20 years experience as a classroom teacher, an Indigenous education support teacher, and a school-based administrator. She provides professional learning and instructional support to school teams in bringing authentic Indigenous knowledges, cultures, and histories into the classroom. She is also the perfect person, as in addition to all of that, she also wrote the Educator's Guides for those of us. So we have a real expert to come forward to gently interrogate about these things. In her off time, April is an embark artist, spends time on the land with her family and office. Please give an enormously warm welcome.
Of introducing David because how do you tell what time of day it is? This is the first week back of school, and so I've lost the whole span of time right now. Yes. He told me that I had to introduce him. I promised him that I would introduce him, but I didn't. Yeah. But I mean, how do we? Done so many of these. I'm sure you're getting there. So I tried to make it a little bit fun. Okay. So I've had the honor and pleasure of knowing this guy for the last 15 years or so now. He's an acclaimed author, obviously. He's known for his captivating storytelling and thoughtful explorations of history, culture, identity, with a unique ability to blend his sense of humor and his heart. Dave has crafted numerous works that resonate with readers across genres, from fiction, nonfiction, for adults, for youth. From day one, he's been a passionate advocate for literacy and Indigenous representation. He often draws from his own background as a member of the North Coast Cree Nation, highlight themes of resilience, community, and the power of stories to bridge gaps in understanding. Trust me, those Governor General awards are very well deserved. In addition to his literary achievements, Dave is always sought after for speaking and educating, engaging his audiences on topics ranging from reconciliation to the importance of diverse voices in literature. He's comfortable with kindergarten kids. He knows how to navigate those hilariously awkward middle schoolers. And he could even hold his own in a theater full of teachers. And trust me, you're not an easy crew usually to deal with. When he's not writing, Dave enjoys spending time with his amazing kids and his saintable wife, Jill, and occasionally attempting to master everyday challenges, such as how can I sneak this new comic book or action figure into the house without Jill seeing it? And if I go to this city for work, is Pearl Jam also going to be touring nearby? Also true. His work continues to inspire and challenge readers, making him an idol. Misewa Saga is simply an epic series. Keeps the journey exciting. For sure. Texted him when I finished reading it, and I was like, what? He's welcoming that at the hour.
I'm gonna go up there in a second to read, but I just wanted to, yeah, I'll give it a quick little, although I don't wanna take I don't wanna preemptively answer any questions you have for me, so I'll be very careful. But, thanks for coming. It's a very busy week, I know, and I appreciate the turnout because it's the first day of school and, the first week of school, and it's a nice day out, and so you spend your time coming here, and I really appreciate that. I first of all want to thank Robertson as usual, which is the best bookstore in the world, and everybody knows that here, I'm sure. I've been having book launches here since, well, I had my first book launch here probably 20 years ago or more, with a self-published book, which I won't tell you the name of because it's really bad. But they they're so supportive of local authors, that they put me up in the Prairie, and they had media there, and there's a podium, and there's so many people in the restaurant. And I just thought, I think I can do this writing thing, and so I attribute so much of the confidence of being able to believe that I can do this to McNally and their support. Of course, to my mother too, who was there when I was 8 years old, wanting to be a writer. My mom's been almost to all my book launches. She's at the back there. Of course, my dad too, and my dad is not with us anymore, but he was always there too for everything I did locally, which was he's always here in spirit, I know. And this series has been such a journey. And I should mention, if you don't have the new covers of the first 3 books, it means you probably should get those too, because you want them all to match. So we have, this is the 5th book. I remember when I went to Tundra, it was probably 2017 or 18, and I just pitched this as really an indigenous Narnia, and that was good enough. And so, but it was originally going to be a trilogy, and then this the book, the Baron Gowns in particular, just kind of went bonkers on everybody, and which was really a shock to me, and it's kind of led to the book 4, 5, and 6 happening, and I've written book 6 already, so I'm kind of done with the series in the writing, which is weird because I know what happens and you don't. So, but I guess before I do a reading now, I just want to also thank Tundra, because there's moments in your life that professionally and personally that you really you just feel really grateful for, I think. And there's moments in my writing career that I've been really lucky and just really grateful for having good people around me, a really good team around me. Tundra's an amazing group, and of course, I work for Tundra now as well, being the editorial director for this new Indigenous run imprint, which is very exciting. Winning the GD Awards was obviously helpful to my career, but the Misewa Saga has been this incredible gift to my career and my life, and the way that kids and teachers and adults and parents and students have like gravitated toward the series and have loved the series has meant the world to me. And I just like, you know, I get messages and letters and all, it's just bizarre. I still have this like imposter syndrome thing where I'm like, why is this happening to me? And but I get like letters like almost daily from students and teachers, and it's like, you know, I'm so grateful for that. And just like yesterday, I got a message from a teacher in Ontario who was just telling me the story about how he read the first couple of books to his kids last year, and then over the summer he thought, well, I better get book 5, and he was going to show his kids who had left him at that point to a higher grade, obviously, and the kids had already got book 5, and they you know, that stuff just makes my day. So anyway, so thank you for being here, and thanks for everybody who's like supported this series, who's really followed this series, and thanks to Tundra. You know, Tundra, like, I have a great team there. Lynn's my editor for all these books. I'm missing, she's amazing. And, you know, T-Dubs, Tara Walker is really awesome. She's like a publisher for Tundra, and Liz and the whole crew, and I really love that the whole crew of Tundra is like one of the best publishing groups in the country. I've been able to work with so many amazing publishers, and Kathy's here from High Water Press, and she, you know, we came up together really with like High Water, and I'm always grateful for Kathy, and so I'm just like lucky. And I'm lucky to be here, and I just want to thank everybody for being here too. So I'm going to go and read a few pages from The Sleeping Giant, and then April's going to grill me for some things. But yeah, I'm not going to. Okay, this is kind of awkward for me just like move from one mic to. I probably could just read it as I was sitting down, but oh, there's my other mom and dad. John, is this something? Yeah. That's really funny. We got it. Okay, good. So I don't want to give away too much because I don't know if you haven't read up to book 4. I don't want to give too many spoilers. So I'm just going to read the first few pages of the first chapter. And if I see anything like glaringly spoilerific, I'm going to not. I'll probably still read it, but like I'll maybe just like give you like a signal, and you can go like this or something if you want. But I like that April's mad at me after the end of book 5, because I did warn people that at the end of book 5 they would be very mad at me, and that's warranted. So when you read the end, you'll also be mad at me, but I think in a good way, because but you have to wait a year to not be mad at me. So so The Sleeping Giant, like, we'll talk a lot about this series, but The Sleeping Giant it's really this like really fun globe-trotting kind of action-packed installment of the series where, you know, the focus is on Eli, and Eli is going around all over the North Country with Pip, the leader of the Bird Warriors, and so it's really just they're the focus of the book and their journey all around the North Country. So this is the first chapter leading up from book 4. This Portal Keeper, and so I'm just going to read the first couple pages from it, and then I'll sit down again. So okay, here we go. Chapter 1. Eli's heart was pounding, and he felt dizzy. He wasn't sure if it was due to palpitations or the feeling of the pull. This was the strongest he'd ever felt drawn somewhere, and this time it wasn't a call to the woods or to a stone or to anything in the North Country. He felt as though he was being summoned into the endless sky, to wherever his mother lived, the Star Woman. When he had finally understood that it had been. So Eli is not all the way human, which is a big spoiler. Sorry about that. But he had finally understood that it had to be true, that the Star Woman was really his mother. Eli had felt like fainting. A celestial being who had come to his feet through a portal in the sky, the Star Woman had clearly passed on to Eli, her son, the ability to open portals. This is a lot of spoiler stuff. I can't help it though. It's like this. It's the 5th book in the series. So anyway, and many pictures on walls in Ministik, which is the island. That's Cree for the island. Showed a child who had been born to the Star Woman and a Cree man. Nobody knew what had happened to that child until now. What did it mean that he was only part human? Well, there you go. That and countless other questions pounded in Eli's mind, and it started to make him feel woozy. Before him, the village of Ministik was crumbling, burned down by the bad humans who had taken the Pisiskoak. At best, the animal beings like Ace and Sasask would be put on display in a zoo. At worst, Eli didn't want to imagine. He felt as if his world was crumbling too, not burned down, but still shattered. He didn't know how he would build it back up again. For the first time, Eli thought he knew how Morgan felt, what it meant to her to have been missing her mother for so many years. He remembered his father, and he was still his father's son. He knew that. He knew as well that he would always be the son of the mother who had adopted him, because kinship in his community didn't hold the requirement of blood ties. His adopted mother would always be his mom. But he had another mother now, and he wondered the same thing that Morgan had wondered the most of her childhood. Where was she? What happened to her? Why had she given him up? Why had she left him on a ski and gone back to the sky world? Maybe she didn't think he was good enough, worth staying for. You okay, bro? Morgan asked. Bro. That's an inside joke that no one will get, so I apologize to everyone online and in here. The question startled Eli, who hadn't noticed Morgan and Emily approaching them hand in hand from the ruins of the council hut. Yeah, you don't look so good, Emily said. How would you feel, Eli started weakly, if you found out that you weren't fully human? That's a good question, Emily said. I can't relate, dude. Morgan let go of Emily's hand and held Eli's forearm firmly, as though ready to keep him steady if he passed out. He must have looked very close to doing just that. Come on, she said. The Star Woman stuff, that's just the tip of the iceberg. We've all been through a lot, and now this. I've dealt with anxiety. At a certain point, your brain is like, you're done. Let's sit down. Maybe that's a good idea, Eli said. The girls guided him safely to the long grass that surrounded Ministik and helped him sit down just before he passed out, extinguishing his thoughts. That must have been his brain telling him, nope, you're actually done, so stop thinking for now. His brain could not stop him from dreaming, though. He was having one of those dreams where you're running and trying to catch something, but you never get close enough, no matter how hard you try. Forever ahead of Eli was his mother, moving like a dancing candle flame. She wasn't even running, she was walking, and so Eli was walking too. Can't you wait up and walk beside me, he called to her. Not yet, son, she said. Why not, he asked. There will come a time for you to seek me out, and I will be here waiting for you, she told him. But you have other things to do before then. I'll stop there. Yeah, that's a good place to stop. Also, I don't want to spoil anything else, so there you go. Okay.
Before he was choosing what he was going to read, we were kind of having and hawing through some of the chapters. I'm like, yeah, start with chapter 1, why not?
Yeah.
But that there are
Logical choice.
Yeah.
Bad choice.
Well, it's still really good.
Thank you.
Yeah. It seems like a natural place to read from, considering like this is the next step in the journey, right?
Yeah.
So
But it's so weird because there's like 4 books of materials before it.
There
So
are.
yeah.
this is a hard place for people to pick up. Haven't read this book before.
But it just means you have, when you read them, then you'll know. And then you'll be, oh, that's what he's talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
So really, when he said earlier, well, why the other books? Yeah, makes more sense. All right, so now I get to ask you some questions. I formulated like, I think 8 really good ones, I think.
Okay.
But if we start running out of time, I'm pretty sure John will like knock on us or something.
Building a pier out of somewhere.
Yeah, time for questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There he is.
There we go. Perfect. All right, so the first thing I was gonna ask is like, so the Misewa Saga is definitely fantasy, like a fantasy type series, but you always seem to weave some really cool connections to things around colonization, right? So things like CFS system, racism, mental health struggle, and now in this one, not to give things away, but you really get into things like land and resource extraction, right?
Yeah.
So how do these themes in the book and in the series really, as a whole, reflect issues that our country needs to address?
Well, it's, I think it's like stories are the centerpiece of reconciliation. They always will be. And there's so much more we need to learn. And when I started writing for, High Water with 7 Generations, and every book since then, I've always had the intention of wanting to educate. Just as much as I want the books to be entertaining, I want them to be like useful. I want them to be used. Really, I wanted my books to be used in classrooms. And if they did well outside the classroom, I was happy. Like that's great. But if they didn't, if they were just used for education, I would have been just as happy. And so I had this intention to have my books used in schools and in libraries. And because I wanted my stories to contribute to this movement towards reconciliation, and that's why every book that I've written has had some sort of like educational or informational quality to it that I think furthers us in some way down this path that we're walking together. And the Misewa Saga is like, I think really this, it is this fantasy series. I did put a lot of work into like the mythology and like the world building and all that stuff you need to do with fantasy. And I learned a lot of that through like, reading Narnia and, learning from C.S. Lewis and how he did it. And there's a lot of that involved here, but the other side of it, it's also like this fantasy world has so much reality woven into the narrative, and that's very deliberate, obviously. And so whether it's the Barren Grounds talking about land stewardship, environmental protection, and the foster care system, which is a big thing, and that's in every book of the series, or whether it's the Great Bear and it talks about bullying through a traditional story of Muskwa, Mr. Muskwa. Every story is based on an indigenous constellation legend, and so and then more recently, this series has taken on colonialism really head on, and the way in which our resources have been depleted and our land has been taken, we've been taken by by settlers and coming in from overseas. This book 4, 5, and 6 have really been inspired by the Beothuk in Eastern Canada, and I wrote about that book about it. And the Beothuk people were wiped out entirely by settlers coming into Eastern Canada, cutting off their food supply by establishing St. John's, and also for good measure cutting off their secondary food supply of the Great Auk. And then and they would also literally take them and bring them overseas and trade them in front of Europeans and charge money for them to view these people and as a curiosity. And it's that's our history. That's Canada. That's a part of what the fabric of Turtle Island, the fabric of this country is that history. So this book really tries to adapt that history in really horrifying ways into the narrative of this new trilogy, this back end trilogy of the 6-book series. And so you do have like animal beings that are being taken by humans. And they're being, traded into not overseas into Europe, but in the zoo, and so people are paying money to see these animals in the zoo, and so, but it's so close to the truth. It's actually very scary. It should be a little uncomfortable to read it because of that, but it's important that we do because we need to know that this has happened in our history. But I think it also, in a way, hopefully shows us a way through it, and shows us a way not that we can change what has happened, but hopefully ways that we can do better and avoid in any way repeating the mistakes of the past. And I think the only way we can do that is by learning. And so that's been a focus for all my books, is how much can we learn so that we can do better. And my books are for kids because kids are really the answer. And the more we equip kids to learn as much as they can, to know as much as they can, prepares them to do better than we have done in the past. And I think kids are showing us that. I have the privilege of being out in schools, probably 200-300 times a year, and I see it, and it's very hopeful. It energizes me to see how much kids know and what they're doing, and just to continue on to do this work because they're setting us on a good path. And so, but we need to give them books And so I just want to play whatever part I can in giving the books.
And well, like as we were talking about this book in so many of our conversations, we kind of shared that this book is more of the darker versions, a darker part of the story, the unspoken story. So how do you find that balance of bringing in those serious topics with the need to keep the stories engaging for your younger audience?
Well, I think a lot about what Marie Sendak said. You know, Marie Sendak wrote some pretty dark literature. You know, the picture books he wrote. And this is why one of the reasons why I love him so much is he wrote some really dark picture books. You know, one of the picture books my mom read me when I was a kid that was really messed up was Outside Over There, which I love that book. And that book is very unsettling though. It's a scary book. And so what he said when he was asked, and I'm paraphrasing him, is that adults read at a surface level. I mean, this is not knocking adults, but kids dig below and they dig deep and they find meaning in text. And so, kids are incredibly smart. They are capable of much more than not we here, but generally people think they're capable of. And so I never try to write down the children. I think about age appropriateness, but like there's so many things that you can address and write about in children's literature. So I keep that in mind as I write, that these books have the capability of really going to really difficult places in a safe way. And the kids are intelligent enough, more than intelligent, to absorb everything that these books have to offer, what they have to teach, and then to internalize them and to hopefully that move into intention and action. So it's just looking at the fun kind of entertaining stuff about fantasy, and then how do you weave in these really important topics. And I think the important part is to make sure it's not ever it's not ever a way to preach or to hit anybody over the head with it, but just to make it part of the narrative and have faith in the reader that they can pull that out of the story as they go through it.
In The Sleeping Giant, we see a real development of the bird warriors. I love how you fleshed out the story of Pip. And also, you flesh out a lot, when you show another side of Mr. Mayo as well. Did you have a favorite character to write, and why are they your favorite?
Of the series?
Yeah.
Oh, well, Morgan's my favorite character.
Morgan.
Yeah. But there's a lot. I've been working on this series for probably 7 years, and so I love almost all the characters except for Mason. I don't like Mason, but I love almost all the characters, and they do feel like family in a way because you spend so much time with them. But I think that Morgan is my favorite character because she's such a real character. She's such a believable character. She's a relatable character. She's really, in a lot of ways, especially to start the series, she's not really all the time likable, but we're not always that likable as people, and she makes a lot of mistakes, and she's been through a lot, and that experience that she's had growing up in foster care and the real horrifying thing that she's been through, and what I know of the backstory has led her to have outbursts, have anger, to manifest that in certain. To articulate that anger in certain ways, and then her growth throughout the series has been steady and slow, but she's just such a complex and deep character, and I just worked so hard on developing her arc. And even though her arc is really as a character growth over the Stone Child, she's still there as a different presence in book 4, 5, and 6, and so I really love her as a character. I love how kids have connected to her, and how I think also kids have seen themselves often reflected in her. And, you know, and Eli is the same way, and Emily too, but I think Morgan, more than anybody, has really touched my heart. And she's a lot of a lot of me is in Morgan too, especially the early Morgan, you know. And so, yeah, I like her project, but there's a lot of characters I really love, like, you know, for different reasons. Eric Watts is just like, you know, she was just really fun to write. And I like Emily because she's just like tough and she's like just like really steady, like a confident character. And Eli reminds me a lot of my dad, and I love that about him. He's always supposed to be like a little version of my dad. And so yeah, there's a lot of characters I love, and Morgan's probably my favorite out of all of them.
It's funny that you mentioned like the arc and the development of that Morgan character, because my next question was, how do you go about developing the personalities and the motivations of your characters?
Well, it's just a lot of like front end work, you know. So like, I don't ever sit down for a series like this, or any series really. I don't ever sit down and just start writing the book. You know, there's a lot of work involved in prepping. So a lot, like the prepping is like, you know, I wrote the entire series before I started writing the first book. Like I knew exactly what was going to happen. You know, this is how I think you should approach writing a series. Like you should know, like when I started writing the Barren Grounds, the first line of the Barren Grounds, I knew what the last line of the Stone Child would be. So I knew like exactly where it would go. And so I was able to like stay focused and resilient and be able to lead my characters exactly where they needed to be to tell this fully fleshed out arc that I was working towards in the trilogy. And even though I didn't plan to write book 4, 5, and 6, I had a very clear idea of like if it ever came to that, I knew what I would do and how I would do it. And so like, I knew it would be about Eli. And it's just question of like how could Eli open portals was like this big question that you could spend 3 books with. And that's what, you know, that's what this last 2 books does. It's like fleshes out this entire, you know, this entire very unique background, and what the implications of the background are and his powers are in the world that they're living in, the things that they're going through. And it's really like in a lot of ways like a superhero origin story. You know, Eli's arc in book 4, 5, and 6. So yeah, so it's just a lot of planning. I had mapped out the world and. They redrew the world because I'm a terrible artist, but like you see the world in like all the books and but like you know writing out the synopsis for like the books and the synopsis for the series and character backgrounds, and so like a lot of things like you find out about Morgan in book 3 I knew before book 1 because I'd written her entire bio. So I knew like, you know, what happened to her mom, I knew about her dad, I knew where she was from and all that stuff. So it's a lot of work. And I think if you don't do that work, you run the risk of like losing your way. And then if you do that, you lose the reader. And so I didn't ever want that to happen. So it's just a lot of planning, a lot of prepping, a lot of like, you know, a lot of I think elbow grease. Yeah, and then you get the fun part of writing it. But yeah, it's a lot of fun and tough work, and it's a lot of like planning everything out meticulously. And it's quite boring to talk about like all that stuff, but it's very important. I think it pays off like how this series moves along at a really, I think, a really smooth way. So
sure. So again, we were having conversations around the book in general. We were talking about like how this book is really globe-trotting, right? Like it's jumping around to a lot of different spaces around your country.
Yeah.
So in this installment, like in this book, the characters move around quite a bit to different areas. Can you share a bit about how you chose the setting of the book and how does it influence the story?
well, it's all momentum, you know, because this is like the penultimate book. So it's like this is really, you know, it's like in a way, it's like, I mean, I looked at The Great Bear as kind of like the Empire Strikes Back of like that trilogy, because it's, you know, you have to, the series have a certain momentum that you have, especially trilogies. I don't know what you call a 6-book series, but like, I looked at it as like, hey, we're doing another trilogy here, really. So this also has to be like, this is the setup book. So, you know, you have to, more so than the first trilogy, this book here is dependent on book 4 and it's dependent on book 6. And so you have to have faith in the reader to stick with you because like it really can't stand on its own, this book. And so you know, it's like it's everything that you need to set it up for this really epic finale. One of the things I really thought I know it's cheeky to do, but like I really like doing this. Is that every single, you know, like in series, every single book gets bigger. And, you know, if you look at like, I hate to mention Harry Potter, but like, you know, Harry Potter is like every single book is massively bigger than this. I think most it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? My books get smaller and smaller and smaller. So like, you know, Sleeping Giant is the shortest book of the series. And then book 6 is like, I think like 400, I think it's like 400 pages long right now. So then I think Lynn's gonna edit it down quite a bit, but like, but it's like, so anyway, so the Sleeping Giant is like, everything everywhere I bring the characters in the Sleeping Giant, whether it's like this big mountain called the Gate, which you only get to see for about a chapter, or whether it's like, you know, flying over Misewa again, or whether it's like going back to Mason's cabin, or the village of the Robins, and all, you know, all these different places. It's all setting it up for this big, like, epic finale that's happening in book 6. And so, but you have to at the same time tell a compelling story that, you know, has its own, you know, climax, its own kind of momentum, while also making sure that you're honoring like the trilogy and the whole 6-book series. So it's a very tricky, especially this book was a very tricky tightrope walking because you had to do kind of two things. And I think it does that, but there's definitely no ending to this book. Like, it definitely ends at a point where you're like, this sucks. Yeah. And then not like it sucks, it's like it sucks as a book, but it sucks as like, I have to like, you know, what the heck, Robertson, why did you do this? You know, and so, but that was very, you had to do that. So, but yeah, but I think like there's also some sort of like faint resolution in like the narrative for Sleeping Giant before it gets them into like the biggest trouble they could possibly get into for, you know, for book 6. So yeah.
And it was, on a side note, I'm very pleased that you did not draw the maps in these books, because especially with this one, because they jump around so much, I was finding that I was flipping back to the map myself just to be able to see where they're at right now.
Yeah, there's definitely like an aesthetic for every book that I really tried to capture. Like, you know, book 1's obviously very much like a Narnia kind of like language and wardrobe book, and the Stone Child is very much like a Tim Burton-esque kind of horror feel to it, and this book is very much. I was thinking, actually, funny enough, I was thinking about like Mission Impossible, James Bond, and how they like kind of like go to all these different locations. I was imagining like, you know, if you ever make it into a movie, imagining like how you like have like the name of the places like come across the screen like you do in like the James Bond shows, like we're here, and now we're here, and now we're here. So it's kind of fun to fall around like all of North Country, because you've been like here and then here and here, and now you get to go everywhere. It's kind of fun to revisit places and visit new places, and then see how it all comes together.
With all of the work that you do visit a lot of schools and classrooms, which is wonderful. I know as an educator, we always appreciate being able to bring you into all of our schools, just because they have, like, you do have a lot of fans out there, and lots of classrooms out there that read your books as like, whether it's individual reads or as a big class read and whatnot. What kinds of discussions or activities do you hope this series might inspire in schools?
Well, you would know about that more than anybody because you did the teacher's guides.
Yes.
So what do you think about that? No, but I definitely had like ideas for this book. I mean, like obviously this book for me is like a book where there's definitely like a legend that it's based on. You know, the last 3 books, so there's always a connection to star stories and indigenous legends. That's very important. So you can learn about constellations, you can learn about our connection to the sky, which we have very strong connection to the sky as Cree people, and a lot of indigenous cultures do. And that's always been an important element of the whole Misewa Saga series. But you know, the Sleeping Giant is literally based on the Sleeping Giant in Thunder Bay. So you know, I think there's hopefully a lot of discussion about like that legend and that area and that people and so there's real world connections. Like I'd love to go to Thunder Bay and actually talk about, you know, the Sleeping Giant, because the story is very almost exactly the Sleeping Giant story, and so it was really cool to incorporate that into like this other world when something that happens here in Canada, you know, and so that was really cool. And of course, there's always like you know, these connections to colonialism and the, the biotech people, I think is like always going to be something that I want people to talk about, because I think it's a microcosm of our history in Canada and how we've like not only like pushed Indigenous people to the margins of the society, but we've literally like a lot of us out, the Indigenous people. So we need to acknowledge that and learn about it, and then figure out what we do with that knowledge. So I think so there's a lot of connections to this story, whether it's like serious Indigenous mythology, or whether it's about like real world Canadian history. There's a lot of, I think, curricular connections that you can make in this book to to use in the classroom. That it will be a very effective tool, I think.
And we were talking earlier about what do you think is and sort of raising a larger conversation around diversity and representation in literature?
But I think like Rich Van Camp has said we're going through this renaissance right now in Indigenous art, and whether it's like in writing, or whether it's in music, whether it's in dance, whether it's in filmmaking, but whatever it is, we are telling our stories now in all these different ways, telling those really vital narratives that, and I think that this website is part of that, and I'm really grateful that it's part of that. But it's oh yeah. So yeah, I mean, and I think like this series, like any other story that we tell in all these different mediums, is a way for us to not only like guide us on the path toward representation. I think that like stories are to do that inherently, but I think representation is a big piece of representation. And so this, when I think about the Misewa Saga series, I think about representation on multiple levels. So whether it's like representation of accurate, true history, whether it's like representation of like underserved segments of our population haven't had their stories told yet, like the foster care system. And I remember like in the very young there had a lot of contacts from different people who have been into foster care who had never read a book about Indigenous person in foster care in for example children's literature. So the Bearing Grounds was like one of the first ones they read, or the first one they read, where they saw themselves represented in that story. And that's very powerful. It's empowering to see yourself represented in that way. Or whether it's like representation in mental health. So mental health is a big thread in the series, and Morgan is dealing with mental health struggles. Emily mentions people in her family who dealt with mental health struggles. She talks about, I think, at one point her dad having a panic attack and how her dad dealt with that. And Eli actually really manifests his power through panic, and he has to learn breathing techniques to push that panic down and stop him from opening portals where he doesn't want to. So there's lots of like things here that I think all connect to this broad conversation about representation, the importance of it on multiple levels. And mental health is something that I've talked more and more about in my career, and it's become a big part of representation, a big part of my work. Not probably as much as anything else I talk about, because the reality is that our kids are dealing with stuff, and our kids are dealing with anxiety, our kids are dealing with depression, our kids are dealing with panic disorder, and so part of the healing process is them feeling empowered to talk about it. And I think when you see yourself reflected in the experiences of characters in literature, it helps you to feel safe to talk about your own struggles. And so I think Morgan can help kids talk about what they're going through, and Eli can help kids talk about what they're going through. That's a really powerful thing. So that's how I see like this series at its most effective, I think, is in that area of representation.
even the representation of just in an area, especially in fantasy, where you have not seen a whole lot of Indigenous representation just in general. It's really great.
Yeah, I think like there's a lot of artists who have opened doorways for us to do storytelling in different genres and forms. I think like, you know, Sri, for example, writing the Marrow Thieves, you know, opened up this doorway to, you know, to dystopian fiction and post-apocalyptic work, post-apocalyptic work. And but just like, you know, we're doing our work now in like, you know, fantasy, we're doing it in science fiction, we're doing it, you know, in all these different genres now. And I think that like, you know, the people who have really trailblazed to enable us to do that have opened doorways that have been very important for us to tell stories in different ways that reach different people and have these really important messages in those messages and in these like new ways of telling stories in new genres. For us, it's helping us to further our long-term goal. And that is, I think that is like whatever you want to think of reconciliation as, that's what it's helping, you know. And I don't love the term reconciliation, but I do love the idea of us feeling collective and building community. And I think that that's what stories help us to do. And I think that every story is an opportunity for us to come together and learn and build, you know, as a group.
I've got one more question. And I know you always talk about and share so much love for all of your fans out there, regardless of what age they are. But you do have a lot of young fans too, especially. We've got a special guy who's missing today. He's been at so many of your launches. Have you received any feedback from your readers that surprised you or moved you, like around this series?
I think just like it's all of it surprising to me. You know, the Barren Grounds was like #2 in Canada last week again. And I just think that's so like, it's hard for me to wrap my head around that impact, you know, and so that all of that is surprising to me. And you know, like kids dressing up as Morgan for Halloween is surprising to me. And you know, getting art from kids who've drawn characters and have sent me that art is surprising to me. You know, and going to like a class in North Dakota where the walls are lined with Barren Ground art is surprising to me. And so it's all surprising to me. Like I never, you know, when I told my mom when I was 8 I wanted to be a writer, I never imagined this, you know. And so it's all like I'm always grateful. I'm always like really thankful for people reading my work. I don't understand why it happens, but it definitely is a motivation for me to continue to tell stories. But it's all surprising. You know, everything that happens because of this series in particular. I don't know why it happens, but I'm really grateful for it. Even, you know, people coming up to my launches, I'm really endlessly grateful for it, and it's always a gift and it's always surprising, and I'm always very thankful to see it happen, even though I don't understand why. So yeah, I'm not. There's nobody more humble than me.
Well, I don't know, John, how's our time? Like, is it time for us to see if the audience has any questions? I don't want to put them on the spot. But
I'm gonna appear out of nowhere.
here he comes.
There he goes.
Excellent.
Is there anyone here who has a question? So if you have a question, I'll wander over to you.
Oh, I mean, so the question was like, what do you think young writers need to hear from their teachers in the classroom? I just think that like they need to hear that their stories are important, you know, and that everybody has a story to tell. And you know, everybody has something to offer. And anything that anybody says or writes teaches somebody something. And anything that anybody experiences can help somebody else in seeing themselves reflect in that experience. You know, and so I just think that there is value in anybody's story. And I think that kids need to feel empowered that they can do what I'm doing or do what any writers today that are successful are doing. There's nothing special about me. You know, I just work hard, and anybody can work hard. But anybody can be up on a chair telling their stories to somebody else and have an impact on at least somebody. And if you impact at least somebody, it changes something for the better. And other than that, I just think it's like, it's doing the things that you need to do to get better at what you're doing so that you can be more effective in the message that you have. So whether it's like working hard at writing, whether it's like reading more and more, you know, whether it's like, you know, just, you know, seeking out mentorship, reaching out to, I've had kids reach out to me to get feedback on their work, you know, all of these things. But I think that, I always go around on for a lot of different ways, but like, I think the main message is that your stories matter and your stories can have an impact on other people. And a voice that is as important to hear as anybody else. You know? And so however you choose to use that voice, whether it's in literature, music, or whatever it is, there's great value in that.
And if you don't like the microphone, you can feel free to just ask your question and we will repeat it on your behalf.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say that I've known Dave for almost as long as his mother has. And I follow him on Twitter and different things. And you have such a strong message for kids out there. Not only kids but others. And I do love speaking. I work in TV research. And so your statement about and how you passion to bring up the most. And so there's of doing that. I just wanted to let you know chance to talks and get to know so I haven't read the side yet, but I really liked how you moved in that issue of anxiety and of what people are doing around to help calm, to be able to help the person.
Thank you. Oh, no.
I mean, you're really prolific, so I kind of want to ask how you plan out your years, right? Like, is okay, one kid book this year, one picture book, one adult book, one memoir. Like, how do you plan it all out? Because you have to be very disciplined and very organized, I think, to work. In addition to being hardworking, to sort of maintain. Yeah, I just want to know how you have a giant chart on your wall. You have a secret room that's locked, and it's got all the plans on the wall.
Well, I can be a very poor planner. I mean, my publishers and my agents and like the people around me really help me to like figure out what I'm doing. Because I don't think if I didn't have them, I don't think I'd be able to handle all this stuff. You know, and Jill is someone who helps me handle all of this stuff, and and so Jill's my wife, and so, but I don't know, like, I guess like what I would say is that I feel like I have a lot that I want to accomplish. Not in any other way other than just like to write books that people can learn from, the books that haven't been written yet. You know, When We Were Alone hadn't been written before. Not When We Were Alone specifically, but When We Were Alone, like a picture book about residential schools for young kids, had not been done before. And so I felt like that was a gap I could fill. And so every single book I write, I try to write something that is new and that is saying something that hasn't been said in that way before that could benefit somebody somehow. And so I feel like I don't expect to, you know, I expect to hopefully be around for a while on this planet, but like, I also feel like I have a lot I want to get done, and I want to get it done, make sure I say as much as I can before I can't say it anymore, I guess. And not to be morbid in any way, but like I just feel like I have a lot I want to say, and I just, you know, I have, but I don't plan it. I don't think. I just like, you know, like I just realized like last week that I had 4 books come out next year, and I just don't. I was like, oh my, I don't know how I'm going to handle that. And so I didn't really plan that, but that's what's happening. So, but like, I want to write about things that matter. I want to write for various audiences. I want to write for like children and adults. I want to write books that help them in some way, whether it's about mental health or reconciliation, about history, and I just want to keep doing it for as long as I can. And when people start to get sick of what I'm doing, then you know, I'll try to do something else in a different way. Like, you know, that. But I'll probably always write. I don't even know I don't even know the answer, Ariel. I just like I don't really have a schedule or like a threaded bulletin board in my room about how everything's going to work. I just kind of like I'm a dog chasing a car. And I just want to do as much as I can because I want to catch the car. And the car is like terrible metaphor, but like it's like the car is like, you know, community, I think. And I think the end goal of what I want to do is build community. And so whether it's through writing or whether it's public speaking or whether it's like in my imprint with Tundra, it's all about building community. And I think the more we learn about each other, the more our community can grow in healthy ways, the stronger our community can become. And I just feel like I want to contribute as much as I can for that. And so I'll write as much as I can for as long as I can. And I guess that's probably the simplest. I was totally nonsensical, but thanks for the applause.
See also the international impact of literature on these stories that now, like I am actually in Germany and I have several of the translations in German, and it's huge. It's very important in German now, especially for the German culture and the connection to the culture. Just when we see it, that it's very impressive, and I'm really happy that the books are translated now and that they're to the world, not just speak in Canada anymore, and how important the stories are. Representing the countries. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
So we are at the top of the hour, so if you folks have any closing comments, I'll turn things over before I go over some.
I don't know. I mean, I just like, I wouldn't be here without you. So that matters a lot to me. And I think one of the things I'm most proud of in my career is not, anything I've been able to accomplish, but it's actually just like a relationship build. And, the only time I ever feel really popular is and so I love the relationship I'm able to build with teachers, with students. And that's why I've been April. And I just I think like what I would probably want to say is that, thank you to educators for the work that they do. And because they have a hard job. And I think one thing that really motivated me to write Misewa Saga by giving resources that will help them in the process. And if I've been able to do that, I think that's probably been a good thing that I've been able to do in my career. And but it's teachers like April that reconciliation. And so I have a great admiration and respect for teachers. My mom is an educator, my dad was an educator, and I really respect teachers. Teachers don't get paid enough. They work really hard, and they have a very difficult job. And I guess I would just want to say that because I have the great privilege of being able to meet tons of teachers every year, and I love them, and I just appreciate them a lot, and I think we have a good relationship, and so I'm grateful for April for being here. I could have, we were talking about who we wanted to host this launch, and I just said, well, we need April, because she's a teacher, and she's done all this work for Misewa Saga series, but she's done so much work in the community in St. James, and so it just made perfect sense to have her here. So that's all I would say, and thanks for being here.
Perfect way to start school year.
Yeah.
It's so great to be able to see, we've been on a journey together, with all of the amazing pieces that you have written. So I don't want to speak on behalf of all the teachers, but just know that out there, we do really appreciate you creating all of these pieces, because it does help us. Sometimes it's really difficult to tackle really difficult conversations, like how do I talk about residential schools with little kids and in an age appropriate and developmentally appropriate way. So I know that all of my colleagues around the province and across Canada, and it sounds like across the world too, are very appreciative of having these resources. And for a long time, when we started this work way back when you first started, there was a huge lack of those kinds of resources for us to do the work. So it's really exciting to see the growth. I'm very excited to hear that there are 4 books coming out next year already. But it's a great way for all of us to go into this new school year and celebrate some beautiful, beautiful writing in this book. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much. We will move on to the signing portion of the evening in just a moment. I'm just going to be indulging for 1 second, just because David had mentioned luck. And we've had the pleasure of being here at the front line since the first book came out. And one of the things with that is that there are 2 groups of people who are the purists in actually offering us feedback on the books that they buy. Because often we're sending books off in the first are children who have a beautifully pure reaction and will not hesitate to tell you exactly where the book is bad. So when we have children running in desperately asking us when the next book is coming in and talking about just how excited they are about books, those are rare occurrences. And it's always so thrilling to see that close at hand. And the second is teachers. These teachers will let us know when a book works. They will send in other colleagues who will be so excited about this book that their other colleagues told them about. And it was like, again, a bomb in Misewa Saga. Just suddenly from this small seed, this deluge of people coming in as well. So even though I was flippant at the beginning, we would very happily weigh down as many tables as we possibly can and travel across North Country to Misewa any opportunity we get. We're thrilled that there's more Robertson always on the way. So thank you all so very much for joining us here tonight. Dave will be behind this table signing books for you. Feel free to get a book signed before you pay for it. Just please do pay for the book before you leave. We're enormously grateful to Tundra for, of course, publishing these beautiful books. We're so grateful to April for coming aboard to host this event. Thank you so much. And of course, we're very grateful for you being here so we can celebrate your books. Please give them a round of applause.